Ahead and get started. Would you please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, FOIA publications have been submitted. Okay. All right, approval of the meeting minutes of February 3rd, the workshop, and the regular meeting. Do I have any additions, corrections? Okay, without objection, the minutes are approved for the meetings. Any questions or comments? Approval of the agenda? Okay, without objection, the agenda is approved. Okay, this is the part of the meeting for non-agenda items. Anybody would like to discuss a non-agenda item? I'm going to give you a couple of instructions here just for general information, for some of you may not know it. If you would like to speak this evening, please submit your request to speak to the Community Development Planner to my left. You will be allowed 3 minutes to speak, and please try to keep to 3 minutes. The commissioners will respectfully listen to your comments. Please be respectful of the public forum that you're in. At the podium, please clearly state your name and address for the public record. This public meeting is recorded and therefore a matter of public record, as does all correspondence on this issue directed to county officials. It looks like we may have multiple speakers, so please try to avoid repeating comments already offered. Not to restrict your discussion, but if we've heard them, we acknowledge that. And I would ask that you please place your cell phones on silent mode. If you need to speak to a caller, please step outside the room. And just as a reminder, the Planning Commission is an advisory body to County Council. As such, the Planning Commission recommendation on any issue goes forward to County Council through the Natural Resources Committee, then to County Council for their review and voting determination. So the Planning Commission recommendation is a step in the process and voting determination by County Council. With that in mind, do we have anyone who would like to speak on a non-agenda item? I have one so marked. So I'm going to call the one that I've got so marked, Mr. Kevin Dukes, on an agenda item.
Oh, you have to sign up for non-agenda?
You get to speak when we get to the agenda item.
If it's not on the agenda, this is the time
Well,
to
then you
speak.
can- Yeah. So we have someone who wants to speak on a non-agenda item as well.
Okay, you need to sign up then,
Oh,
please. Yes, Mr. Dukes.
sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kevin Dukes. I'm a real estate attorney with Harvey and Batty here in Beaufort. We're located downtown at 1001 Craven Street. And this morning I'm coming to talk to you about a new plan that has been submitted for the downzoning of a property commonly referred to as Pine Island. This plan will involve the reduction in density on the downzoning of 100 residential units permanently removed, and will create economic impacts and investments into the local community and Beaufort County as a whole. The Planning Commission advises council on matters relating to preparation for the future, orderly planning for wise conservation of natural resources, and preservation of scenic beauty and environment of the lands, waters of the county. The 2040 Comprehensive Plan advocates for responsible growth, creating a vision and regulatory tools it needs to balance economic development, resource protection, and growth in the form that creates quality places. This downzoning plan aligns with the goals of rural and critical and the green space programs, and through a market-based public-private partnership delivers everything those initiatives aim to achieve, importantly without spending a single taxpayer dollar. In fact, what we're proposing is actually an investment of $3 million into the local community on St. Helena for the creation of a community and recreational facility, something that the community has said over and over again that they would like to have. In addition to that facility, we're also proposing a continuing revenue stream to help fund that. And also, this will end up being over a $100 million investment into the island, the largest ever made, and will create 35 to 70 new jobs and will be the largest employer on St. Helena. In addition to that, there are several other countywide benefits. The primary one that I've already mentioned is the reduction in density. So that removal of 100 homes from the landscape is a reduction of 66%. That results in a 60% reduction in traffic and traffic impacts. And 360 acres, or 82%, will be permanently preserved as open space. Additionally, 90% of permittable docks will be removed from the shorelines along Village Creek, Eddings Creek, and the Morgan River. And that's 30,000 linear feet of shoreline. The removal it'll also be a removal of over 1 million square feet of impervious surface. And on 365 acres, vertical structures will be removed from what would be residential at 50 or 60 feet back to 150 feet. And both of those things will help preserve scenic views and prevent runoff into the surrounding waterways. I think this is an important point to make, which is that I've got a copy of the plan that I can hand all of you tonight. We've sent that out to the public. We filed the application. And this is important because we wanted to make sure that you and council, which I've already spoken with, already given them copies, have the plan at the same time that the public has the plan and from the very beginning. And that's in an effort to be as transparent and get as fair of consideration as we can as we go through these next couple months with the plan. And so that's very important. We've arrived here through an extensive engagement with the local community over the last couple years to figure out exactly what they want. And you'll see more of that in the documentation that I provide you. And you'll see that that engagement has been very specific, talking to individuals locally on St. Helena and in the broader Beaufort community. Finally, I will close by saying that I truly believe that once people have had an opportunity to see the plan, consider the alternatives, and most importantly, just read what's actually in it, I think that all of you and I think that most folks would understand that this is in the best interest of Beaufort County as a whole, and more specifically for St. Helena. So thank you so much for the time, and I'll give you copies of these materials. Thank you.
If you would just hand them over to the planning department over on the sideline.
And the planning department has these, we filed them, but I've got hardbound copies for everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next on the list for non-agenda item is Joyce Gibbs.
I'm here today, my name is Joyce Gibbs Ham. I'm here today because my aunt, she is 96 years old, and she is in need of a home. And she has land, but she's having to go through so much just to put a mobile home on her land. And there was even an existing mobile home there. But she has to make sure water is there. She has to make sure, and she has water, but they want her to get it from the county. They want her to do another deed at 96 years old, and we're not corporations. We can't meet the same expectations that the corporations are being asked to meet. And so it's just unfair that we're having to go through so much just to use our own land. And so a lot of our land go undeveloped because we can't use it, because so much hardship is put on us before we can even begin to use our own land. We have to meet the same standard as the corporation. They don't give us that much money. Yeah. And let me just say that in reference to corporations, I do know that during the pandemic, the government gave out $500 trillion to corporations. They gave us $2,000. We can't meet the same expectations as corporations do.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. I have several other public comment requests here. None of them seem to bear non-agenda item, but if I'm mistaken, you can let me know. Are there any other non-agenda items that anyone would like to discuss? Okay. Hearing none, seeing none, we'll go to the first action item for the evening. Consideration of an ordinance amending the zoning map for 11 acres located on Burnt Church Road from T3 Hamlet Neighborhood, T3 HN, and T4 Hamlet Center, T4 HC, to T3 Neighborhood, TN3. Mr. Merchant, are you presenting?
Well, good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. So before you is a request for a zoning map amendment, and this is located in just adjoining the town of Bluffton, right across Burt Church Road from MC Riley Elementary. This is an 11-acre parcel which currently consists of 2 mobile home parks with approximately 35 to 40 units in those mobile home parks right now. What the applicant is requesting is, the current property is split zoned. So the front portion along Burnt Church Road is zoned T4 Hamlet Center, as you can see the darker purple on that map. And then the rear portion of the property is zoned T3 Hamlet Neighborhood. So they have, they've come to our department looking at this site. The original idea was not to have to seek a rezoning, but what they're dealing with 2 issues. One is that it's split zoned and they want to do one single development on the site that doesn't necessarily follow the 2 different zoning districts. But the other thing is that the property lines have moved. So the existing zoning is based on a property line that no longer exists. So it creates some unusual features on the property. If you see that there's a portion of T3 Hamlet Neighborhood that's almost the width of a right-of-way that goes down to Burt Church Road, that's part of the old property lines that were on the property. So what they're proposing is what we see is basically taking the land on on Burnt Church Road and downzoning that and taking the rear portion and upzoning it. So in a way, it's kind of a wash. So there's a district between T4 Hamlet Center and T3 Hamlet Neighborhood, which is T3 Neighborhood, and that's what they're proposing, is to change the zoning of the property so it's all one zoning district. They have expressed their intention of building a 50-lot single-family subdivision on the property, and so as far as staff's review of this, we believe that this really is not an upzoning. It's more of a correction of a property that was split zoned. It is no longer relevant to the current property lines. And for that reason, we believe that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, with the future land use vision of that area, and would not have adverse impacts as far as it's replacing existing units with single-family housing. So it's not going to have additional trips generated significant enough to demand a traffic impact analysis. So for those reasons, staff recommends approval of this rezoning. And I certainly, if you have any questions, and also there's a representative for the applicant who's here as well.
Questions for Mr. Merchant?
You said the property line was changed or something?
Yes.
How did that come about?
I'm not sure the history. We looked at old parcel maps because I was starting to wonder whether it was a mapping error, but there was originally property lines that corresponded with the zoning districts, but they moved, and so now it creates an unusual situation for somebody trying to develop the property. The applicant might have some more background in that.
Others? Yes, Leslie?
Rob, what has been the Beaufort Jasper water response?
We did reach out to them, and they said that this is adequately served with water and sewer. It's basically right next to Old Town Bluffton. It's across the street from MC Riley Elementary.
They're on septic now, aren't they? That development?
Yeah, but they do have proximity to public sewer.
Yeah, I mean, two times in the application appears to be on septic. I mean, they are or they aren't.
Well, they're on septic, but what you're saying, there's a Beaufort
There's
Jasper.
the capacity to go
They can hook it up.
to BJ
Yeah.
Water and get rid of the drain fields. I guess that was in their
Yes.
application too.
Yeah, and they would have to, considering, you know, the other one is a mobile home park, so it's under one ownership. I'm not exactly sure the nature of each individual septic system. I mean, it's been there a long time, so you know, to subdivide the way they're wanting to do here, it's doubtful they're gonna have that on, I mean, it would need public sewer and water.
And you said 30 to 40 of these units are occupied at the moment?
I don't have the
Oh.
exact number, but it is somewhere in that neighborhood.
I was just wondering about displacement. Where are those folks going to go?
Yeah, and that is a concern. I mean, this is, you know, so it's a wash as far as the number of units, but it is, you know, it is removing affordable housing for the area.
Kind of the bottom rung of the housing ladder,
Yeah.
actually.
As long as we're talking about notifications, has the school district been notified and the town of Bluffton notified?
Yes, we did reach out to them.
Any input from them?
Did we hear from the school? No.
It's right across from
I know.
MC Riley
Yeah, I know, I was puzzled by that
Fire
too.
Station right next on the other side, and Bluffton right across the street. Okay, no comments from them. Yes, John?
Rob, did I read in the staff report that the existing use is non-conforming? And if so, what does that mean in terms of limitations of being able to make any types of improvements?
So mobile home parks, which would mean, you know, it being under one ownership, you know, with individual sites being, you know, leased out to mobile homes, that particular use is not permitted in each of these districts. But these mobile home parks could continue into the foreseeable future. They just, you know, they could only expand 15%. They're pretty much, you know, the site is fully utilized as it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Merchant? Okay, I guess that's, you want to hear next from the applicant?
Okay.
Is that Mr. Klosterman?
That's me.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I'm Andy Klosterman with Davis & Floyd Engineering here in Beaufort. I think Rob explained the zoning challenges that we face better than I can. I'm happy to answer the questions about the septic system. We are submitting Beaufort Jasper, we already have. We are going to try to put it on public water and sewer. I did say appears, I haven't put my eyes on the septic tanks, but I know they're not on Beaufort Jasper. It might be a drain field, spray field, something along those lines there. Any other questions regarding the site, I'm happy to answer.
You want to answer the question about the property line?
Oh, that's old. We researched it, and it's just old lot lines.
Old lot lines?
Right.
Don't exist?
It was way before the new zoning ordinance came into play, so I think just it was missed.
I was going to ask the earlier question about what are the total number of units that are on the properties today and
The
how many
mobile
are
homes.
occupied?
I think there's 40. There's some areas we couldn't get to confirm. I don't know how many are occupied. I can answer that. There are 3 separate lot owners to date. Like there's not just one that owns all 3. So that's been challenging to get everybody there as well on board.
And is it my understanding the property's been on the market for a number of years now? Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I'm just an engineer, not the developer or the landowner.
Did I read that there is no need for new internal roads? So what kind of,
Just the internal subdivision roads. I think, were y'all given this sheet at the back? That's the current proposed site plan that we're working to permit, so no major access roads.
Are there any considerations by the developer for the displacement of the current people who live on that? I mean, they're basically, their homes are going to be pushed, they're mobile, or in many cases.
I can't answer that. I would have to imagine that they've worked out with the property owner and the developer that's purchasing, but I can't answer that.
Okay. I was interested in one other issue. It was determined that a traffic impact analysis wasn't necessary in this piece of property. It was a little bit surprising, since that's a major artery off of Bluffton Parkway and 278, and it's got a school right across the street and a fire station to the one block over. How did that, Kevin, you want to address that? How did that determination come about?
Yes, for the traffic impact analysis and us not necessarily performing one for this particular site, basically the site generates a certain amount of trips today. And the new or proposed site is going to be not much more than what's going to be there today. So when we have instances like that, where we understand that the net new trips isn't going to be a significant amount more than what's already there, then a traffic impact analysis isn't necessarily required.
So is that just kind of like a stab in the dark, or do you?
No.
You made a judgment that we don't need to do one?
Well, we looked at what was there today and what they're proposing to do. And our ordinance talks about
50.
Yeah, our ordinance talks about that as well. So when there's a expansion or sites where we plan on doing more than what we think we're going to do, we actually have to pay attention to that as well. And for this particular site, we looked at that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask, do you know offhand what the current level of service is for Burnt Church?
No, not offhand, not offhand.
They're not even sure how many people are there. So
Well-
how do you determine the levels of traffic?
Well, I mean, I've driven by there a few times, and a few other of our colleagues have driven by there a few times, and we've actually looked at the actual site plan
Oh,
as
okay.
well. So the
So
site
that's how you-
plan
That's
has
how you
been
make your
through.
determination?
Yeah, the site's, been through.
We surveyed the number of units, that's what we go by. Whether they're occupied or not, I'm not sure. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
well,
running.
Yeah, okay. If they were 50% occupied or 100%, there's a big difference in traffic levels.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay.
Okay, any comments from the public at this time around this issue? Okay, is this William Smith? Yes, sir. Yes, come up, William.
Good afternoon. How you doing? When you make mention of what you made mention of just now, I am on the school board, and I don't remember hearing this exactly. And I won't say we have, but this doesn't ring any bells. When you said that study, I was thinking the same thing of why hadn't we had a study? And we have areas now that the developments and things are going up, and they are going to affect the coming in and out of the schools, and so I was wondering the same thing. And so, I mean, I think Mr. Burgess said that they've gotten in contact, but apparently hadn't gotten in contact with the school board. Not to my recollection, and if I did, then I do apologize. But I don't remember this coming to us in terms of in terms of especially not having a study, because I know there are a couple projects that we are working on right now where we're in talks about having studies. And and so we're trying to see if we need studies. So I'm a little taken back by that. I'm not sure, but this is definitely a this is a surprise, and I think that what you said may need that, and I think that we may need to have that conversation if we have not had it yet. Thank you. So I do appreciate you allowing us, and that's what we're talking with the county council now about, having these conversations, so when things like this do come up, that we are aware, and so that we can work through them. Because when you just don't go build schools different places, when you build them, you want to have them in a place where people can get in and out of. Thank you.
If the school district wishes to make a comment, they
And
can.
I can, we typically reach out to Carol Crutchfield and Robert Otting, their department, when we do a rezoning.
We did reach out to Robert Otting. He didn't respond. So we have been trying.
Can you speak,
That was-
can you speak publicly so the public can know what you
We
said?
reached out to Robert Otting, who's the engineer for Beaufort County, because we were looking for assistance for the sewer tie-in. We sent him a letter, certified mail. We have not heard anything back.
Okay,
So we're willing to do a traffic study. I don't think it's gonna warrant any extra access work, but if that's what we needed to do, we could. We're not, if that's how y'all feel, we need to do.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments regarding this issue from the public? Okay, let's bring it up to the DS here. Any comments, questions you'd like to make? John?
I'll start. I guess I was hoping that someone from the applicant side was able to be here tonight to answer the questions that we had about existing residents, and what kind of communication has taken place. Looking at some of the historic Google images, I think I had seen at least since April of 2022, a for sale sign out front, which I don't know if that was at least an indication to someone that lives there that something was gonna happen with that property, but it would be nice to know how many people were actually living on the property, and if there's been notice in terms of, a year, 6 months, what is being communicated to the residents. That was my biggest question or concern when I was reading through the staff report. Beyond that, it seems like from the requirements that as a commission, we've been asked to review zoning changes, it seemed to have met all of the requirements that we typically take into consideration. But I'll stop and let someone else give their 2 cents worth.
Well, I felt the same as you on the displacement issue. If this issue goes forward, I would encourage that the subsequent reviews ask the same question about this potential displacement of existing residential facilities there. These people are gonna have to live somewhere, and obviously they're not living in those kinds of homes, right, that are being planned. Okay, any other comments?
I guess I'm concerned that BJ Water hasn't responded. I mean, we can all sit here and assume that it's in proximity to hookups and so on, but,
We submitted to them.
right, but
I
they
have-
haven't responded, is my point.
I have letters from them.
They responded to us as well.
And what did they say?
Yeah, they have water and sewer
There was-
available.
It's adequate.
It's-
A-okay?
And it's,
Yeah.
it's far away too that we're going to tie into the sewer. It's a good bit of work we have to do.
Okay, unless there's any further comments, can I have a motion for the approval of the application for consideration of an ordinance amending the zoning map for 11 acres located on Burchurch Road from T3 Hamlet, T3 4HN, and T4 Hamlet Center T4HC to T3 Neighborhood T3N.
I so move.
Okay, could you repeat your motion so we know it's for the record?
Unfortunately, I don't have the,
Do you have an agenda?
no, I don't have the agenda.
Anybody else want to make that motion? Go ahead,
I'm
John.
happy to.
That's okay, that's all right. Yeah.
I'll make a motion regarding amending the zoning map for 11 acres located on Burnt Church Road, case CDPA 000047-2025, to approve the amendment or make a recommendation for approval based on the staff report and testimony received this evening.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Dan, thank you. All right, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 2 against. The motion passes for approval, the recommendation to go forward. Thank you. Okay,
Have my traffic study, right?
we're gonna now looking at action item number 8,
Traffic study.
consideration of an ordinance amending the zoning map for 86.16 acres located at 98 Jennings Road from T2 Rural to T3 Hamlet Neighborhood, T3 HN, and T4 Hamlet Center, T4 HC, utilizing the Hamlet Place type overlay PTO. A lot of signatures. Rob?
Okay, well, this should look familiar to some of you. The Planning Commission looked at this particular rezoning. It was in a different form. Back in March 4th, 2024, the applicant had come forward with the request to change the zoning from T2 rural to C3 neighborhood mixed use, which is the yellow on that map. At that time, one of the comments that was made at the Planning Commission and staff was that it was not meeting, so our comprehensive plan calls for neighborhood mixed use as the future land use designation for this area, but it also has a Hamlet place type, which calls for a place type overlay rezoning. And so the applicant returned with a different application for that place type overlay. And so, as you remember, we looked at this similar type of rezoning with Cherry Point. I would say that this is a much smaller scale, but it's the same, basically the same tool that is being used, where the comprehensive plan has designated this to be a hamlet, which calls for a mixed-use, walkable community in that location at an appropriate scale for the area. And so it is submitted as a zoning map amendment, but is also accompanied by a thoroughfare plan, that shows the layout of the streets, open space, and other details in the community, which are spelled out in our ordinance. And so that's what the applicant has returned with this particular development. And if you remember, this is located on Jennings Road. It is on basically across the street from Battery Creek High School. It's north of Broad River Boulevard in the Burton area in northern Beaufort County. One thing that was submitted with the package, which I wanted to make it clear to the Planning Commission, the applicant has expressed an interest in entering into a development agreement. Now, obviously, the Planning Commission, we're looking at this as a rezoning, but I think as you're aware, we've had several other applications where the applicant has expressed interest in doing a development agreement. So they have submitted a draft agreement, and I think it's important caveat is that until council decides or makes the decision that they are interested in negotiating, this is just the applicant's ideas on paper, but it kind of gives you an indication of where their starting point of discussion as they move this project forward. Some of the items that so they've addressed an interest in developing workforce housing at an so the draft agreement has 10 units at, for between 80% and 120% area median income. They have they're proposing closing credit or down payment assistance of up to $2,500 for those units. And I think the applicant could provide more detail about, what that might look like. They've also indicated that they are willing to offer $75 or $750 per unit for the neighboring community for housing rehab. So those are some of the items. The other thing that I really want to emphasize here is that they are proposing to use the development agreement to modify some of the standards that are in the districts that they're proposing, which staff has indicated communicated to the applicant that our interpretation of development agreements is you can't use them to do that. You can't use them to relax standards or modify standards. So that, when we get to the recommendation, that'll explain where we're going with that recommendation. So I think it's important that you understand the background of that. So they're proposing this place type overlay. It would have up to 244 dwelling units with a mix of single-family and townhouses. And they're proposing to accompany that with a development agreement, which would offer, assistance for some affordable units, housing rehab in the community, and they're proposing to modify some of the standards. Kevin, do you want to speak a little bit to the traffic impact analysis? Okay. And then I'll go ahead with the recommendation once then.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So the applicant performed a traffic impact analysis. As you can see, you can put it up, please. Should be there somewhere. We looked at various intersections because the actual site sits between two schools, Battery Creek and Roberts Malls. We made sure that we also analyzed the school peak times of the traffic for this particular development. So on average, in the AM during the school peak and during the PM, this site is generating like 150, proposed to generate like 150 trips from this particular site. Of course, those trips aren't all on Ramsey. They're not all on Jennings. They're not all on County Shed. They're not all on Broad River. They're dispersed. So we have certain percentages going to certain places based on how traffic is moving today. The site, do you have any questions before I move on? Any questions about that part?
Does this plan stay, what's the failure rate?
Well, the intersections are all performing at acceptable levels, with exception to the County Shed Road at Paris Island Gateway. Today, because those intersections are stop signs, typically at stop signs, they're longer waits. Especially at those stop signs, because we have two hotels and a gas station there. The waits are the waits are very, very long today. So those intersections aren't really doing too well with respect to time. Of course, people are getting out. There's not accidents, anything like that, but from a traffic impact analysis standpoint, and we judge them based on how long a car sits there. Cars are sitting at that intersection pretty long today. All the other intersections are looking pretty good. The W.K. Austin intersection at Broad River is it's a mix. During the AM, things look pretty good, but during the PM and the school peak, things could be better. And when you add the traffic from this particular development, then the AM gets degraded. So that's why we recommended a certain mitigation measure at that particular intersection. But that's the largest thing that came out of this study. So almost 90% of the intersections are doing fine, and we recommended that one improvement there because we are anticipating no more than 15% of the trips to be going down W.K. Austin. Go ahead.
Did you recommend a specific mitigation measure at that intersection, or just that it needed to be looked at for mitigation?
No, we recommended that right-hand turn traveling towards the light at PI Gateway and Broad River, that right-hand turn to go on WK Austin. We recommended that there actually be an actual right turn lane to kind of let that through traffic come through and those cars make that turn. So that's our recommendation there.
Thank you.
A capacity improvement.
Are these improvements being made by the county?
No,
Or
no,
would this
this
be
is,
by the developer?
yes, this is a ask for the developer to actually do. There are other approved developments in the area that's also contributing to the trips at that particular intersection. So, so that will be something that multiple developments would carry the weight of with respect to funding that improvement.
Okay, any other questions for Kevin? No. Thank you, Kevin.
All right, so staff also had a few, so I wanted to summarize the recommendation. As far as the future land use plan, it meets the future land use plan and the place type overlay. We did have some concerns about some of the site layout. The T4 Hamlet Center District is laid out in such a way that it's applying to a lot of open space, which is not really the highest and best use for that district. If you see on the map, it's the dark purple, but it's kind of wrapping around and taking in, where the open spaces on the site, and that's really meant to be the kind of the center of the community. So, but some minor changes like that. The townhomes facing Jennings, we had some questions about whether Jennings is going to be improved with the streetscape that's appropriate for having that type of development fronting it, because right now it's kind of a rural cross-section of a road. So we had those comments that you see in the staff recommendation. In addition, so what we're saying is that, we recommend approval. However, it's important that it be accompanied with a development agreement, and we believe that what they presented is really the beginning of a conversation. We really think the council needs to take a careful look at, the workforce housing and the need for this area, and whether what they're offering is going to meet the needs. But we believe that this should not move forward or be approved without a development agreement to lock in those things. In addition, we're adamant as staff that the development agreement cannot be used to modify the standards. That if they're choosing these districts, T4 Hamlet Center, T3 Hamlet Neighborhood, that they follow the standards in those districts. Yeah. And with that.
Check my understanding on this. A Hamlet PTO has to have a minimum of 80 buildable acres. This is 86 acres. So
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, is that, if you take out the wetlands and you take out the open civic spaces, does that still meet the criteria for Hamlet PTO?
Yeah, we go with the overall size of the site.
Okay, regardless, so it
Yeah.
just means more density on the land that's left.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my question about the 15.5.
Yeah.
And the applicant is here, so if you want to hear
Okay.
from them also.
Rob, how would you can't use the development agreement to adjust the standards. How would that be enforced? It's not in the draft agreement. It's not laid out. I mean, there's no information on architectural guidelines on exhibits E and F, exhibits F1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
It would be enforced by, if this moves forward, by us, making sure that that is conveyed to the people who are negotiating the development agreement. And then, if there's nothing in a development agreement that modifies the standards, then when they come in for individual development permits, they're going to be going through, our department, making sure they meet all the requirements. So.
Can you explain again for me why a development agreement is a good idea for this parcel and not just the PTO?
Well, the reason that we're recommending it is if they are intending on offering workforce housing, then we believe that having a mechanism, it's one thing to say, well, we're offering workforce housing by just, increasing the supply of housing. But they're saying specifically that they're targeting a certain income. And so if that's the case, then that mechanism needs to be ironed out in an agreement. So that's tracked, that it's made sure that those units meet that income group that they're saying they're going to meet.
I guess I'll wait till the applicant, I have some more
Okay.
questions about the draft agreement.
Yes, John?
Just so I'm clear in understanding the thoroughfare standards that you referenced regarding the townhomes on Jennings, I think I understood when I was looking at the kind of the cross-section, so that would require a fair amount of improvements on Jennings itself in order to meet the thoroughfare standards in terms of changing lane widths, adding additional lanes, adding bike and ped facilities. Is that correct? Or what exactly is involved in meeting the thoroughfare standards?
I think at a minimum, we'd be looking at a cross-section where there's, sidewalk, street trees that would be consistent with the townhouse development.
Okay. And then the only other question, you had mentioned the issue of the T4, which I understood staff's comment. I guess I'm just trying to think for them to adequately address how T4 should be reflected in a plan like this. I'm thinking that would ultimately impact densities and number of lots and a number of other things that are being proposed in what's before us today versus whatever changes they'd have to make to correctly utilize T4 as it's intended in the code. Does that seem like a reasonable interpretation, or?
Yeah, I think our biggest concern is that these lines will then be part of our zoning map when this is adopted, and there's a really awkward along the southern boundary taking in an open space. And it would be much more logical layout if the T4 were all consolidated in one area. Whether the applicant can do that and stick with the same number of units, I think that's something they're going to need to work out.
There's already a maximum set with that PTO anyway of density. Are y'all meeting that already? Maybe. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it could change.
Did you want to come up to the microphone too?
Well, that microphone is also on the,
Okay.
yeah.
And I can wait for the
Okay.
applicant to talk about that as well. That's fine.
Rob, I have a question about the standards that you went through, and particularly standard number 3, when you said addresses a demonstrated community need, that workforce housing. As I understand it, there's 10 units out of 244 that would be so dedicated, which is less than 4%. Do you see that as an acceptable figure for?
Well, that's why we're recommending that's something, we see it as a starting point, but I think that's something that council and the developer are going to have to work through, because, what income range are they targeting and the number of units?
Okay.
I mean, our opinion is that seems rather low in terms of the number of units, and possibly a little high as far as the income. And so that's something that I believe the council would need to work through with them.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, Rob.
Okay.
We have the applicant come up, please. Mr. Tiller, who's going to be talking?
Rob Merrick with Pulte Homes.
Okay. Would you identify yourself again? I'm sorry, I don't think.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
Speak closer to the.
Rob Merrick with Pulte Homes.
Yep.
She's pulling up the presentation real quick. We just wanted to be able to, again, thank you for your time this evening and welcoming us back. So we wanted to be able to kind of run through and kind of highlight a few things as we're talking through the project this evening. So one of the things that we focused on since last year, we listened to a lot of the feedback, a lot of the comment that came from the community workforce housing, community workshops, planning commissions, land use council. We were able to take all that feedback, and we worked to come up with a business plan that we felt was in line with the feedback that we received, as well as the comprehensive plan. So we know a lot of time and effort has been put into the comprehensive plan as far as your planning, which in turn was, recommended by the Planning Commission, then adopted by council. And we thank you for that. That gives us, as home builders in this area, an opportunity as a roadmap to be able to work off of as we look for future opportunities within the communities. Some of the things that stand out for us in the comprehensive plan, that as it's the vision, it's a healthy toolbox from which it's to help guide growth. Some of the things also stand out, and it enables Beaufort County to act on the actual comprehensive plan. We understand that growth is desired and it's inevitable, but it also talks about mixed housing types and ensures that affordable workforce housing. It also partners with nonprofit agencies, and it also states that it's missing a middle housing. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we focus on as we're looking at Ramsey Farms. As Rob stated, it is identified in the 2040 comprehensive plan. It's located right there as far as neighborhood mixed use in the hamlet place type overlay. When we came the first time, we were going for a straight zoning. One of the biggest feedbacks that we received was that we need to stick with the place type overlay. Let's focus on the place type overlay. So we did. We took that time and effort. We designed a plan that would fit those needs. So that was just one piece of the overall business plan that we started to look at. One of the things that we also wanted to bring up is the location of this. We took a 5-minute, 10-minute, and 15-minute radius around this site. One of the things, if you notice, within 5 and 10 minutes at the most, you're at major work employment hubs within the area. You're also located within 5 minutes, you have 3 schools within the area. You have major shopping, retail, all within that proximity as well. This all keeps everything isolated and centralized, and as identified in the comprehensive plan, what you would call an infill location. One of the things that we also wanted to make sure that we hit when we're talking about the development agreement, we took a lot of that feedback, and I heard understanding that you made about the deed restricted homes, saying that 10. Well, as of right now, what was brought to us was mirror something that was done across the street in Mint Farms. Well, in Mint Farms at that time, they had 5 deed restricted properties. We doubled that, but that was just one piece of the puzzle. We also understood that we need entry-level housing, new workforce housing. We got young professionals in the area, first responders that all need housing. So we implemented another portion in that DA, which would be a down payment assistance. And then not only that, from the surrounding area, we heard rehabilitation with housing. So we implemented that arm. But for us to be able to implement this, we needed to have a partner. And so that's where we talked with Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust to be able to help hold us accountable, we can utilize them as a partner. They have the arms as far as the reach to be able to work with the rehabilitation. So through this process, not only will we be working with council, we'll also be working with Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust so we can implement this throughout the community. So we want to thank you. We're open for it, right? We have Josh here that can speak to the plan and Walter that can speak to the development agreement if you have any questions.
Questions? Rob? Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I didn't find that in the draft that there was enough information on the architectural guidelines that I mentioned before. And when did you plan to flesh that out?
So as far as the architectural guidelines, we planned on fleshing that out when we were working with the council and staff on determining the sets of plans that we're looking at. We understand that the guidelines are in there, and we're willing to work with staff and council to come up with an appropriate plan that would work for that area.
But under the development agreement, to reiterate what Rob said, you are aware that you cannot relax any of the standards that are in place.
We understand that the standards that are in place, but at the same time, yes, and we understand that we were going to work through those details. But we also understand that there's nothing out there for deed-restricted properties and things like that. So we're also coming to the table with some of these. We want to find something that works well for everybody. And we understand the standards, and we are going to work diligently to be able to come up with plans that work well for that area and work well for staff and the county.
And that includes changing what Rob pointed out, the transect?
We understand that, yes, ma'am, we do. And we've started discussing this with Josh to go through, and we've had conversations with Kristen, how we can start working through those plans to make sure they're, addressed.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I forgot to ask Rob of this, but you may know, was there any input from the military or from the school district regarding ACUS, or the school district regarding,
Yeah, we reached out to both of them, and they have worked around, there's a portion of the property that is covered by the airport overlay district that's dedicated to open space.
Yes, sir.
well, I've got a question of you. I'm having a hard time with this from the standpoint, I'm looking at the 7 criteria that the county council looks at in making determination of whether or not this goes forward. And I note there's at least 3, maybe 4 items of that 7 that the staff doesn't think are being met.
Okay.
You've got their information, the same as we have, but
Mhm.
you're seemingly saying that they are being met, or they're going to be met. So I have a hard time, in my own mind, knowing that there's 4 out of the 7 that aren't being met, making a recommendation to move it forward to another body to decide whether or not they're being met.
Exactly.
I would
And the
expect that
3
you
of
would
the
come,
4
I would expect that you would come to us with all criteria being met and favorable conditions. So I'm having a hard time with that.
I think the conditions that Rob laid out that are not being met are specifically laid to the land plan itself, working through the thoroughfare, so being able to identify those areas, working with the civic space, labeling that. So as far as the initial plans, then absolutely, sir, we feel more than confident that we'll be able to come up with a solution and work through what the ordinance calls for.
And we're not going to be able to see that, we, the planning commission.
I think you'll be able to
Expecting
see
us
the overall thoroughfare of the plan. Now, whether or not it's a sidewalk or whatever that
That's all I
specific
think.
thoroughfare is laid out, I think would be able to, the overall land plan itself is, yes, there are going to be some modifications based off of what, as far as the layout they talk about, the T4 and the layout of the land. Some of that might change, but the overall density in some of those areas will remain the same. There might be some modifications. You want to speak to that?
I'm Josh Tiller with J.K. Tiller Associates. We actually just got this report Friday, so it's a little difficult to react to it. But based on all these conditions, we can meet all these conditions. If we go back to the regulating plan, where Rob mentioned that area that was shown as T4 Hamlet Center, that purple area at the bottom, we can move all that. The effort here was to capture some of that open space to keep the density down in that district. Because based on the Hamlet Place type, you're limited percentage-wise acreage to the amount of the T3 Hamlet neighborhood. So we hit that wall at 70%. We can move it, but we did that in an effort just to capture some of that open space, to keep the density down. If we move it, the density will change slightly, but we're okay with moving that any of those conditions we can meet.
Well, this is something I think needs to be discussed with the planning department. You want to comment on them not seeing your comments before Friday and saying now that they can meet these comments?
What comments?
The staff report.
The staff
Staff
report was
report.
posted last Monday and was made public then.
Well, that's what, I received it Friday, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I understand your position. Thank you.
But we can make, we're able to meet these conditions, if that's the question.
Go ahead, John.
Tied to this whole notion behind the T4, which is intended to be kind of your Hamlet Center versus the T3, which I guess is more of a Hamlet General. Mr. Merritt had pointed out earlier that this is, for all practical purposes, an infill site. The existing zoning, as I understand it, would have had a yield of 27 homes maximum for this area. Your previous proposal was 184 homes. You're now proposing 244 homes. I'm not sure there's anything in the hamlet requirements that requires you to have as high of a density as you're proposing. And I have to think that there are hamlets that can be designed that fit in a more conducive manner because it's an infill piece of property to the densities that are surrounding it. And part of that would be as you're adjusting your T4, it doesn't necessarily mean that your density has to go up. It just means you're shifting where the T4 is and that it's operating more as a center rather than as this little skinny line that runs around the property and only takes up where your drainage and your open space is. I believe that a lot of these things can be addressed in the plan, but to the chairman's point, because it's place-based, this is an opportunity for the planning commission to see a lot more of that level of information before having to pass everything off to the Natural Resources Committee and the council to get into all of that level of detail. There's still plenty of things that they're gonna have to work out from a development agreement, but I think the basics of the plan itself is something that could and should be worked out at this level before at least I'd feel comfortable sending it on.
We understand, and I think Rob and I have had that, we specifically discussed that, whether or not something, if there's needs to be changes, whether we can make them now, and then bring them to you. One of the things we talked about was, this is the process that we had. So we had within a week of understanding, we got the staff comments back. We understand the comments, but we can, as he stated before, we can work with those comments and we can meet the needs.
Did you want to make a deferral then to another month? Come back to us with your improvements to their
I mean,
recommendations?
Rob, I think our comments on that, Rob even stated, this is the process that we're gonna work through, and as we go through, we work through the process with staff as a recommendation from them, with their recommendation to move forward.
I think we'd like to see that, but progress you make, so I think we're saying, what John's saying, and I agree. If you think you can come back to us with that, then perhaps a deferral is in order.
Let's hear public comment, and then we can
All right,
go from there.
I'll hold that. All right, I've got, in no particular order, because they're not numbered, I'm just going to call out folks who have submitted public comment requests. Grant McClure.
Hello, my name is Grant McClure, and I work for the Coastal Conservation League. Our office is in Beaufort at 1211 Harrington Street. I appreciate the opportunity to comment on the rezoning of the 86 acres at 98 Jenkins Road in the Burton area. One of the things that stood out to me was just the amount of density that's proposed at 244 units. When this project was brought forward last year, it was around 180 units. And what's currently zoned on the property, that T2 rural zoning allows for 1 unit per 3 acres, which would yield about 28 units. So it's an 8-fold increase from 28 to 244 in an area that still has a lot of rural zone property. And so it's concerning that might overburden the infrastructure in the area. And there are some attractive things about the development agreement that's on the table, like the workforce housing proposal. However, I do think that number of units proportionate to the total number of units is pretty low. And also the AMI is quite high. If you had a teacher that just graduated from college that wanted to work at Battery Creek, she's probably not going to be in that $80,000 to $120,000 range that is proposed at the moment. Or if you had a firefighter or an EMS that was living alone, you really probably wouldn't be able to fit into that threshold. And so, In general, Beaufort County has kind of gotten away from doing these development agreements because they're often controversial. They can result in litigation. And so just want to caution against entering into anything too hastily, even if there are certain things that may seem appealing. I appreciate your time. And in general, I think the biggest concern here is just that level of density with the infrastructure in that area and what those impacts might look like if you were to approve 244 units there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Carol Dorey.
Carol DeRay, 183 Jennings Road. I really could just say I agree with the gentleman ahead of me and just sit down. But I'm going to thank the gentleman over here for being mindful of people in Bluffton that have been displaced out of that mobile home park. That's happened before in Beaufort County, and it really is a hardship for those people when they're given this amount of time to find a place when there just isn't a place in Beaufort County at all anymore. I think what works best for Jennings Road is to leave it the way it is. I mean, there's actually trees. It's actually, I mean, the road itself is fine. We do have schools in the area, so there's traffic a certain time of the day. But as I sat there, and I looked at the codes book at the density. So, and I think that's been addressed quite well because I am concerned about the density in that area. Not just traffic, but kids and school and just the general rural area that it is now. It seems to me that Beaufort County in so many ways has developed the philosophy that if we build it, they will come. And I think we're sort of being overrun by what we're doing. We take groves of trees, chop them down, and put down multi-three-story apartment buildings that are too numerous to count as you drive past them. And I know it brings in money, but I think the price we're paying is too high. We can't accommodate the people that we have now, and we want growth and we want progress. But sometimes I think we need to step back and look at what price are we paying for that progress for the people that are here. You can't get in to see a doctor anymore unless you've already been established because they aren't taking new patients. So then you get to be, and I don't have any problems with the physician assistant because that's who I've seen. Neurology, it took me 2 months to get an appointment. To see a specialist, it won't be till after July. So we have needs that people are coming. Like I said, I'm not against growth, but I think we have to look at what price we're paying as residents of Beaufort County. Our schools they need improving. More and more people are going to homeschooling or to an internet school because they don't have faith in our schools. We have increased crime in Beaufort County. The last time I saw it is probably higher now. We have over 80 unsolved murders in Beaufort County. One of them is my granddaughter, so I'm aware of that. We have drugs, gangs, shootings all the time that we didn't used to have, so we have to keep a lid on some of this. Traffic, we know there's increased traffic. You can't hardly get on the road some places at certain times of the day. We talk about sewer and water, and maybe Jasper and Beaufort can handle that, but I do know at peak water times in the summer, they call from the aquifer, and we know that salt water is coming into the aquifer. So just please be mindful of those that are already here and take care of us as well. Thank you.
Joyce Gibbs Ham.
My name is Joyce. My last name is Gibbs Ham. I think I want to maybe just address the human in us all. And the reason why I'm saying that is we were looking at a lot just a few minutes ago, and they said that was an O-lot. And I was thinking to myself, well, my grandmother was here in 1790, and we had land then. I have our old deed right here today from 1907, which means we've been here for more than 100 years. And on the back of this old deed, is another deed. It says that we were here 20 years before 1970. That was, 1907. That was many years ago. And when you think of it, I'm thinking about the land that Mr. Robin and those want to buy. They want to buy that land from John Trask. They haven't purchased the land yet. You see, John Trask purchased that land back in 1933 during the, I think it was what do you call it? A stock market crash, right? During the stock market crash, the government had to figure out a way to make more money. So what they did is they sold land, and they gave corporations money to buy land. Just like during the pandemic, they dumped millions of dollars into corporations. They didn't give the people nothing. And I'm saying that because in 1863, they said they freed the slaves in 1865, right? But if you look at this sheet, my grandfather was making $10 a month in 1867. So he was making 33 cents a day. You understand? And so even today, we're still trying to figure out how we're going to make $34,000, $30,000, and he wants us to purchase a house at $80,000. Well, no, that's $300,000 and plus. And so we would have to make at least $80,000 to get the loan, all right? And I still got some information on Beaufort County. In 1863, when they were selling land, they were selling up that land because they passed this law to tax the people. Where did we get money to tax, to pay taxes? We didn't have no land. We didn't have no land. We didn't have no money to pay no taxes. The reason why we didn't have no money to pay the taxes back in 1863 because they was just trying to figure out how to free the slaves. In 1865. We're still wondering how we're going to keep paying all these high prices that these corporations are trying to put on us. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Loretta Millage.
Hello, my name is Loretta Millage. I live at 6 Ramsey Loop, Beaufort, South Carolina. I just want to say that I am against the project because of the traffic, because of the people that's going to be coming in. The community is going to be larger. Like they say earlier, more crimes, more traffic at the intersections on Jennings and County Shed and on Broad River Boulevard. And I'm just against it. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Laura. Melanie Gallion.
Good evening, thank you. We grew up in Beaufort, and we owned property on County Shed Road. We had 19 acres, we had farmland, animals, garden, and this property runs behind our property still. We do have mobile homes out there that we rent for years and years and years, and I don't know what the impact's going to be, but knowing that it should be 28 houses or homes, families, versus the 244 homes and family. And I would like to see it remain the 3 acres per family, and I'd like to preserve the property, the land, the trees. But traffic right now on County Shed Road is tremendous because I'm out there going across that street, and we've had to widen that road right there before Battery Creek. So I know more property will be taken when streets have to be widened, but just a lot of changes is going to take place. And I couldn't actually tell from the map if it's water. I don't really understand what's coming beside our property, but it may be water, maybe it's blank land, and I don't know who I would speak to about that, but I do have questions concerning the layout of what's going to come behind our property that's shown on that map. And this is the first time I received notification of this change.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the public comments that I have at this time. Do you want to say anything in conclusion, Robert? You have anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I mean, you want to see if anyone else wants to speak?
Well, I do, I will, but I was going to ask you first if you wanted to. Do you have anything you want to say at this point? No? You don't have to, I'm just asking. Would you like to make any further comments? Rob or Josh?
Yes, sir. Did want to ask you, Chairman Pappas, as far as the shortcomings that we're looking at based on Rob's conditions, what specifically do you have anything specific that you would like to see, understanding that we know that we have to meet the conditions?
Well, I would defer to the planning department recommendations and to pass the test. If they pass the test, we'll look at what's their recommendation, what they say, and then we'll be able to comment. I can't give you anything specific now. This is a piece of a puzzle that's got to be put back together.
So if we meet the conditions for the planning and planning staff.
That would be a start, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, and who are you?
Yeah, hi, Adam Tennant with Pulte. So along that same question, if you don't mind, I think staff has laid out the conditions of the 9 questions you brought up with. They had some reservations, and I think they addressed those reservations with the conditions in the staff report. So to the last part, if we're okay meeting those conditions that have been outlined, we're hopeful that we can get your recommendations. So that was just one thing. So maybe staff can shed some light on if we meet those conditions. And we will meet those.
Well, I've seen nothing yet that says those conditions are being met. I see it's very conditional, their approval. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, just to be clear, we'll meet those conditions. We're saying right now that we will meet the conditions that staff has laid out, so thank you.
All right, let's bring the conversation up here to the dais. Comments?
Okay, you're gonna meet the conditions, but only when pressed. That's when you finally said you're gonna meet the conditions. I have a problem with that. I'd much rather see the conditions being met right now before going forward, as opposed to, yeah, we'll get them in the future sometime, because the future can be changed. So that's why I'm against this applicant right now. That's my comment.
All right. John?
I guess it goes back to the question that we were asking the applicant earlier, is that, for me personally, particularly the issue of the T4 and the transect, the way that the areas being shown in purple are right now, they aren't meeting the intent of what the Hamlet Center was intended in our development code. I understand that you believe that you're able to change that, to address that, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I think what we've said all along is that that's something that as a planning commission, we don't feel we can make a recommendation to council until we've had a chance to see how that's changed and how it affects the plan. So I think what I've heard are 2 options. One is you want to go back and tweak your plan and bring it back to us, or you're saying, here's the plan, we've said we're going to meet the conditions, take your action tonight as it's been presented. Is that what I'm understanding?
Who are you asking the question?
I'm asking the applicant if they're saying that they would rather us act on the plan tonight and accept the fact that they're going to work with the staff to address the conditions.
Regardless, that will change. And we're in agreement with staff on their recommendations or their conditions. You all have the ability to approve this with conditions as long as we meet those conditions. If we don't meet those conditions, it doesn't move forward. So we're happy to meet their recommendations on all the recommendations, whether it's a playground within 1,000 feet of every lot, whether or not this plan changes to remove that portion of T4 back to the core. There were some other conditions, whether or not we had civic space within the building for public meetings. We're willing to meet that condition. And designating the types of civic spaces throughout the property. We can meet that condition, and I think we can work with staff to meet that. And that's our intent.
That basically says you're still trying to put 240 homes in,
44.
244?
That number could
doesn't
change. That could change based on how that transect changes. So,
Okay.
But again, that's up in the air, you know.
I think as long as and staff understands
Okay.
that, and I think our plan is to meet their conditions.
Okay, and
So
you're
we-
still gonna go with a really low rate
out
of
the two
workforce homes, like, what was it, less than 4%, you said?
Well, the workforce portion is a development agreement issue, and that's a separate, that's not part of this.
All right, I think you laid out two options, and it looks like you're wanting the one option of, on the faith of that you're going to meet the conditions to go forward with a recommendation for approval, for a recommendation of approval to the to the Natural Resources Committee. The other one is, we'd like to see the plan with those conditions met before we're going to
And that-
forward it.
That's up to you.
So, yeah, that's right, that's the two options, so I appreciate your point, yes.
Hi, so with the density, the Hamlet PTO is capped at 3 units per acre, so they're at the maximum now, so it can't go any higher than that 244.
But it can go lower.
It can go lower, but it can't go higher.
Yeah, okay.
Right, it's a 3.27.
All right, are there any other comments?
I guess I'd like to say that I think I can't in good conscience move it along because it would be shirking our responsibility for what we are supposed to do with the planning commission.
Yeah.
And
I will second that motion. There are just too many questions that are left unanswered here. I think we would be derelict in our duty to subjugate our decision to staff review. The customary procedure is to review with staff and get a recommendation from staff, and I would certainly be open to considering that once the staff is satisfied that these conditions have been met.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, the applicant has just
Can you
informed me.
identify yourself, please? for the
Yes,
public?
Brian Holbert, Acting County Attorney. The applicant has just informed me that they would like to take the option to defer. I think they just read the room, saw the light, and they're going to defer and work with staff, and then try to meet those conditions, and then bring them back for planning commission to consider that before they vote and act on it.
Okay, how long is the deferral, a month, 2 months, 3 months?
Let's start with a month, and if they need more time, then they can ask for additional time.
Well, we don't want to drag this out to,
Yes, sir. The
Month
next
by
planning
month.
commission would be a good start, wouldn't you agree? But if they can't meet it, if they need more time, Mr. Nestor can contact me, ask for a continuance, and I'll work with Rob to contact you and say, hey, they're not ready, let's put it at the next meeting.
okay, so you're requesting a deferral, correct? All right, we need to vote on that. A motion?
I motion that we table this, or make a deferral until our May
Until-
meeting.
It'd be our next meeting in, what's the date?
It's the 7th of May, whatever.
Is it the first Monday in May, Rob? Yeah, it'd be the first Monday.
May 5th,
Yes, sir.
until the May 5th meeting, and you'll notify us if in fact they need more time.
They will have to contact us ahead of the meeting date, notify us that they need more time, they're not ready, and then Mr. Merchant and myself will contact you to alert you to that, and then it won't be on the agenda. With your permission, it'll be on the next month, June.
Okay.
But our goal would be to get it before the planning commission for a decision in May.
All right.
So
thank
hopefully
you.
they work
Thank you.
diligently to get there.
Do I have a second of the motion? Second, Cecily, second?
I had a clarification potentially.
Sure.
I just want to make sure that this was a motion accepting the applicant's request for a deferral, that we're not making a deferral because there's a difference in the way our regulations
Yes.
are written
Yep.
for the.
Yes, the applicant is asking for a deferral. That's correct. And we second it? All of those in favor of accepting the deferral, raise your hand. That's unanimous. It'll just defer until May 5th, the next board meeting of the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.